Welcome back to the On Business podcast. With tons of experience in different industries in Canada and the United States, Danielle and Brandon give you real talk, no nonsense expert advice about running and owning successful companies. Here's your host, Danielle Jenkins and Brandon White.
Watched some movies and Obi-Wan Kenobi came out, which you're not a Star Wars fan, so you wouldn't get, but it had a big weekend, apparently. But I think we watched that Friday. But we watched the movie House of Gucci. Have you seen that movie?
Of course I've seen that movie. I love that movie.
That's a sad story. I mean,
it's crazy.
People, yeah, I couldn't figure it out. Clearly that one guy, brother, was the genius behind the store, but they lost their mind. And it looks like they had extended themselves financially. I never understood when it first opened and they were living in these opulent miniature castles. And then you see that a lot of that money was being generated out of one or two or three stores. Mm-hmm. And there's just no way that financially works. So I was like, they must be leveraged. And then they just really blew it. But it goes, you know what, there's this common theme, even with criminals, that could probably get away with what they do, or legal things where people just blow it because of their ego.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, you have $100 million. I get it. We all want to be better and everything, but take the $100 million and go invest it. And then that one guy died poor. I mean, I mean, it's a real lesson, but it happens. You see it. I don't know. Have you ever seen the Tom Cruise movie American Made?
No.
It's about him as a CIA contractor is what he was, but he was a very good pilot, this guy, and he was recruited to fly to Latin America to take pictures of the revolts that were going on, because at that time in history, late 70s, the communist movement was making a push to Latin America, which was a threat to America, obviously, or any democratic state. So we were trying to figure out what was going on. So he originally started flying down there and taking reconnaissance pictures. And then he got into, because he wasn't making enough money, and he was an airline pilot. I'm going around this. I don't know why we're talking about American Made, but I know why we're talking about American Made. He was an airline pilot, and he was smuggling cigars actually from Canada to the U.S., which is a big thing, or was a big thing back then. And they had found out that he was doing that. Then the agency recruited him to do spy pictures, and he wasn't making enough money. And they said, well, you'll figure it out. So then he started flying drugs, because the agency had given him all the maps to get back into the United States so that his plane didn't show up on the radar, basically saying what was going on. So he got involved with the biggest cartel, which was, I don't know why it's escaping me anyway. It's the biggest name in drug cartel, three guys. And he was making so much money. I think he was making $2,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 a kilo. And he's flying whatever he could get in a 2-engine plane to get off that runway. So say he's taking 500 pounds. I mean, the guy's making, $500,000 a flight. And he was making so much money. He just kept going and going. I guess you get into it. And then you just lose it all because you become stupid. And it happens over and over. You see it legally and illegally. You see it. And it's just a testament to the human ego is very hard to stop.
It's so true. Circo and I speak about this all the time. When you see those people that win $70 million and within 3 years it's gone. And, we always say, like, we obviously have investments and plans and we take care of our money and our finances very well. But we always say, okay, if we were to get $10 million, in from the lottery, what would, and I don't play the lottery. I've never been a lottery person, but he does. We always say, what would we do with it? And we always say, we would still go to work the next day. We would just buy 10 more income properties, and we tell people that when we joke about it and they go, oh, you're crazy. Wouldn't you stop work? That would be your retirement. No, that's the wrong way to think about it. So it is true though. And that House of Gucci movie, perfect example of how power can really destroy you. I mean, granted, they are still a very well-known brand, but
yeah, but they don't own it.
No, they don't. But
the Gucci family is out.
They are. And one thing that I think is crazy, and how you and I always speak about branding and how to maintain that within your business or your company, it goes right in line, because when they first started that Gucci brand, it was so high end. Everything was handmade, leather, beautiful workmanship. And now, though expensive, it's not considered, it's a luxury brand, but it's not an opulent brand, if that makes sense. So it's expensive, and it's considered, you have lots of money if you have it, but it's not to me, it doesn't scream classiness. I don't have Gucci products. I don't like Gucci products. I think they are very trashy and very tacky, but they're expensive. So it's just crazy how the brand and what the brand is known for has changed.
Well, I think the other interesting part was that when that guy's wife went to the market and saw all the knockoffs and was very upset about the knockoffs, the truth of the matter is that the brother who was running Gucci, which arguably was the brains behind it, was making them and selling them cheaper because he was making the company was making an extraordinary amount of money actually from the knockoffs. And it was, so I found that interesting, because it's always these behind the scenes things on businesses that people don't understand quite how they got to where they are, the quote unquote magic. And for the most part, none of them, Gucci as well, got there how you think, or how the business schools teach, or it's not like that at all. In fact, I was reading some interesting things yesterday, which I'll pull up, on how companies really do. I don't want to get too far off our topic, but I think this is interesting on how companies that we know actually got to where they were. And with Gucci, it was, they didn't say the amount of revenue that was coming from those knockoffs, but they were making them and selling the knockoffs to the people in the market and making an extraordinarily large amount of money.
Right.
And,
which in all honesty makes kind of sense. I don't agree with it. Would I do it? No, but it does make sense, because they wanted their name so known where everybody had it and everybody knew what Gucci was. So they made some of their things cheaper or more affordable for the average person. So at least they had Gucci, right? So the Gucci name was just everywhere. Smart to get your name out there, not smart to maintain what you're known for, i.e. high-end quality, very well off people only.
I don't know. We could probably do a whole show on that, Danielle, because if people are buying the knockoffs and rich people believe that everybody wants the brand but can't afford it, or has to buy knockoffs, and they actually own the, in air quotes here, authentic one, that actually can drive your brand. And that's exactly what I think happened. And he leveraged, which was he created demand. He created demand at all levels.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
And then the rich people, and I remember this, I remember girls in my high school, Louis Vuitton at the time was the thing. And they would say, mine's real. And, that's fake. So it actually drives the exclusiveness in many ways, ironically. And I don't think people, it's an interesting case study to unpack, but it does work. And a lot of these brands, I'll give you an example. PayPal. So we're getting off fashion, but we are getting into how brands and companies actually get to where they're going or got. And PayPal actually created a bot that listed low-priced goods on, or this is originally on eBay, and then bought and paid for them using PayPal, which tricked eBay into thinking that everyone loved the payment method. And it primed the pump. And eBay actually ended up making PayPal their biggest payment provider. The other, I mean, I'll tell you a dirty secret about the media company that I built, which was the main site was the largest social networking and e-commerce site for sport fishermen of all things. And in the early days, and I know this sounds, people listening, maybe even you, Daniel, be like, yeah, that's so original, Brandon. But the idea was that users could leave the content behind and we didn't have to write it. Mm-hmm. And that sounds, now that's what social networks do. That's what they leverage. I mean, Facebook doesn't put a lot of their own content, if any. The users, Twitter, I mean, keep going down the line. Reddit. Yeah. I mean, I'll get to Reddit in a minute, actually, how they started, which is similar to how I did it. But when we were building, quote unquote, they were called bulletin boards, message boards, walls, they're all the same thing. They're basically a text or a video or a image, some asset, and then comments, or just text and comments. That's all these things are. It's not revolutionary. And when we were trying to get people to leave the content behind, I wrote about this. There's actually, I think, a 23,000 word blog article that I wrote of exactly how I did it. And in that blog article, it explains how I did it and explains how I did a lot of other things in that. But what I did was, Danielle, I was like 15 people on that forum, message board, whatever you want to call it. And I would ask myself questions. And then I had books. I knew a lot of fishing stuff, obviously, but I wasn't as smart as I was 10 years or 20 years later when I was fishing 200 days a year and, doing all this stuff. But I was definitely a good fisherman. And I just got the books and I would answer myself and have a dialogue with myself. Now that sounds crazy, but
it builds traction.
Well, here's the analogy. Let's say you're is Orangeville the main town where you live, right?
Yeah, it's the central to all of our served areas.
So let's say you are in Orangeville and you're going down Main Street. I assume you have a Main Street.
We have a Broadway, yes.
Broadway. Very fancy. We can tell that we started with House of Gucci here and fashion shows at the Audi dealership. You're walking down Broadway and there's a line out the door of a new restaurant. And there's a restaurant 3 doors down that has one person sitting in it. I haven't even told you what type of restaurant it is, but where are you going?
I'm going to the one where everybody wants to go.
It's very, very simple. Humans are, the other analogy I use, and I don't know if you've experienced this, and maybe Sergo has, those, I'm going to call them stupid because it's crazy how this works. The guns that shoot T-shirts.
Yes.
At events. Everybody goes to grab that T-shirt. And here's the crazy part, Danielle. You don't even know what size it is.
Can I just say one thing about those T-shirts?
You can.
I never, ever, ever, ever go to get the flippin' T-shirts because I'm 5 foot tall and 100 pounds soaking wet. They will never, ever, ever fit me. So I am the exception. I will never, ever go to the T-shirt gun.
Yeah, but aren't you inclined instinctively to reach for that thing if it comes near you? Or are you 100%. Just sitting there like, no? Yeah.
No, so, if it was to come to my face, I'm not just going to look over.
Yeah, you're going to be like, that's mine.
I'll grab it and give it to someone else at the end. But it's still like, look, I got the shirt. Yeah. It is the stories behind the stories. And maybe we should just do this show on stories behind the stories. Yeah, let's do it.
Because did we say what we were going to talk about? If we didn't, listeners, you'll have to tune into another episode. All right, well, this one's become the stories behind the stories. And what I did was created that because when you go to a site or you go to a blog post and they're like, oh, leave your comments, and nobody leaves comments, nobody leaves comments because they're like, oh, that nobody else is doing it. And the irony of it. So I primed the pump and did that. And then when someone new came outside my 15 or 20 names, I answered them.
Yeah.
And here's exactly what Reddit did, which came subsequently after I had done that site, and probably, I forget when Reddit was started. I sold that site like 10 years, sold it 10 years ago. But Reddit started off by creating thousands of, see if this sounds familiar, fake accounts, and made them all interact with each other. So that the technology was a little bit more advanced. So they actually could write a bot that did this, which then drew in actual users, and the true strategy of faking it till you make it.
Yeah.
This was another case study I was reading that basically then Reddit took off. And here's another really interesting thing for listeners, for even your Instagram dialogues, or if you have a blog, when you do that, you actually control the narrative. Meaning
You do.
you can say, oh my God, Danielle, that is, say it's controversial, right? Like let's just say you're buying a gasoline car, and you know that people are going to come out and say, you shouldn't be buying a gas hog car, da, 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 da. Well, you could actually post the first 5 comments and be like, oh my God, that's a beautiful car, and start to control the narrative because you're the people. And that's actually, if you dig into the Reddit case, exactly what Reddit did. They decided, because of these quote unquote fake accounts, how they were, what the tone of Reddit was going to be. And people imitate.
Yeah.
Humans are very, very predictable animals. So I think here's another one that I learned from a lady on the show. Maybe you did this, I don't know, but I was actually thinking about this yesterday. As business owners and founders, we have an inclination to put CEO and president. I have a problem putting CEO with a company that, I don't know, like if you have less than, I'm going to say 100, but I'll give you a pass at 20, maybe 30, 40. I don't know, the CEO title is sort of like, you're the CEO. I mean, is that the same as Elon Musk, or is that the same as, I mean, you see, you're laughing because it's not. It's just, it doesn't mean you're not important. It's just, you'll see founders put CEO of their one person company, and it's like,
right.
But here's what I learned. A lady, oh God, she's the founder of Half Moon Bay, Main Street Barber, and then she has a beauty shop here in town, and she has a company that does posh pumpkins. I had her on the show, and when posh pumpkins, we have a pumpkin festival, and they're these little posh stuffed pumpkins she makes, and people go nuts for these things. They're like Beanie Babies, like, and like Gucci, they have to be a posh pumpkin or they're a knockoff. And she said when she went to sell them, she was the salesperson door to door, and she never said, I'm the president or CEO. And I was like, why? She's like, people think that you're small. Why would the CEO be going door to door?
Right.
She's like, I'm the vice president of sales. And this goes back to our other discussion about ego.
Yeah.
Like, is it because you were, and if you unpack that one, I mean, why do you want that title so much? Is it because it's status? Is it because people made fun of you as a kid? I'm not saying that happened all the time. Is it because you have some self-worth thing? Is it status? Is it, and if it's status and then you say, well, I don't care what people think. Well, if you won't use another title, you do. So
and I can
don't
actually firsthand go into that, because when I first started the company, I was cleaning myself. I was managing myself. I was hiring myself. I was doing everything myself. So, and everybody that's listening now, they're going to know my secrets, but it's a great thing. And it's true. I had different email signatures not with names, but different titles for different communications. If somebody emailed about a schedule, then it came from the admin signature. If somebody emailed about being a new client, it came from the business development manager. If somebody emailed me direct, it came from Danielle. At the time, it was president. I didn't do the CEO thing, but that's how I did it. And it's true. People were like, "Oh, wow! Like, there's actually a person for this." And I'm going to be honest, a part of me felt bad because I mean, granted, I was lying, but I technically was the business development manager. But I
don't think you weren't
things.
lying. You weren't lying. You were just putting the role that you were playing at the moment.
Exactly. So it worked. It helped. People didn't just think, and because I was going for the whole time not to be that typical cleaning business that everybody's used to, I wanted to completely change the narrative of the industry and have a company that is like way better and totally different than everybody expects. I needed to do that. And it totally changed the narrative of what people expected from the company. If I was the cleaner, I mean, obviously at the beginning, people knew that I was the cleaner, but I also talked like this quote unquote big game, like, oh, I'll talk to the manager. I never showed up at those houses while I was cleaning and talked to them about how I owned the company also, and how I also had 8 meetings that night for new clients. You know, I never did that. I always just kept very quiet. The odd client knew, but that was about it. You know, I didn't flaunt that, oh, I'm the owner or anything like that. So now that we're at this point where I have managers, I have a residential division manager, I have a business development manager, and now I have the CEO. So if there's an issue where somebody comes into the company and there's a major fire that I have to put out, I deal with it. And my signature, my title is Danielle Jenkins, CEO, Domestic Divas Cleaning Co. People like that. They know that the CEO is getting involved with this shit that just went down. But you know, Samantha, now she deals with the complete residential division. So now she has an admin, and now she has her assistant, and now she has the managers on that side. So everybody has that. And honestly, it worked. It worked to get us to where we had to be.
Yeah, it works. All these traditional, I almost think it's ironic that they teach informal education. I'm not saying that there's not case studies out. I haven't seen the case studies on this. When I went to business school, we didn't. There were some interesting case studies, but there weren't as many stories about how it really happened. Another one I'll throw out there is Airbnb. They scraped all the emails from Craigslist, and then from people who were either renting their things out or looking for a place to stay. And then they encouraged all those people that they scraped from those sites to use Airbnb.
Yeah.
And then they made an integration into Craigslist that with one click, it would copy their ad and put it on Airbnb.
Wow.
That's how they seeded their company. Here's one that I found interesting, which was Amazon. So when Jeff Bezos originally wanted to do books, he couldn't afford the inventory. And wholesalers would not let him buy one book. So they always had a 10 in general. There was a 10-book minimum when you placed an order. So because he was really just the middleman, he was marketing the book. He was then buying the book wholesale and having it shipped, or either shipped to him and then he would ship it, or drop ship it, which I don't think in the beginning days in the 90s he was doing
drop shipping.
So drop shipping sort of thing. So what he would do is he would order the book that the customer on Amazon ordered, and then he would order a book. They say he ordered a book on lichens, which I looked up, which is like some fungus. But none of the wholesalers carried that book. So they would write to him and say, I am so sorry that we can't send you the other 9 books, but we're going to send you this one. and he basically hacked the system so that they were shipping him one book.
Wow.
And so you start thinking about how innovative that's not a traditional business school marketing case study. I'm using business school, I'm picking on them, or traditional marketing class case study that would say, Danielle, you should, right? I'm sure you had a business plan, but you should, in your marketing strategy, figure out exactly who your target customer is and do all this. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. What you did was, I got no money. I do have a printer. I do have a cleaning service. I'm going to print some flyers and put them out there, and then I'm going to act like I'm bigger than I am. That's hard to teach.
Yeah.
That's I don't want to say innovative, or it's not, you can't call yourself innovative, but someone else can tell you it's innovative, but it's just gut, like street smart. I hate to use it, but street smarts. I had a friend staying at our house for a while, and he was going to school, so he needed a place to stay and out here, and he lived at the house, and the drain wouldn't, you know how you can lift in that thing that lifts your drain so you can fill your sink up with water in the bathroom. And he's like, hey, the thing is stuck. And he was trying to pry it up. And I walked right in, opened the door, moved the lever underneath the pipe, and the thing pops up, and he's like, you can't teach that shit, man. And and my point is that you've got to think like that. You've got to, sometimes we're trying to pry that stopper up from the top, when really you just need to think about the mechanisms that are going on in this world, and really it's behavioral psychology in some ways, and break down the behavior or understand the system of how it really works, and then just move that lever. The way that thing works is actually a long pole that goes down to a long lever that goes up and down that closes that valve. And if that linkage breaks, then then that drain isn't going to stay up or down. So you just open the door, go in and pull that thing, and boom, it works. So but that's what all the, these case studies that we're talking about have done.
Yeah. They've just thought about things a little bit untraditionally, and just kind of tweaked it and did it. Made it happen.
Another one, I'll give you another one. Tinder. So Tinder actually created thousands of fake accounts in the beginning of good-looking people, which then lured, air quotes, other single people in. And then it says they accidentally matched users for at least a year. So it's one of those things that, again, they prime the pump. This is all about priming the pump and perception. Is magic lying?
I love magic.
Is
I'm
it
gonna
lying,
be honest.
though?
No, it's not. It's just, I try to explain this to people all the time because they're like, oh, you're such a child. Why do you like magic? I love magic. I will always find a magic show somewhere and go and watch it because I think it's the coolest thing. And I almost question myself on my day-to-day operations psychologically, because when you're watching magic, you know that it's not real, but you still fall for it every single day, and you cannot see where the illusion is happening. And I question myself all the time. I go, fuck, did I miss something here? Like, because of magic. And it's so true. It's not lying, but it's changing your viewpoint / perception on something, which I think is incredible. And that's an art on its own.
Oh, I mean, there could be an argument that it's deception.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's true. It is deception but not negatively, if that makes sense. Like,
well, I don't know, man. Hypnotizing somebody on stage and making them jump like a rabbit around stage is arguable. I'm taking that viewpoint to say people accept it. It's magic. It happens, and it's all about deception. It's all about understanding how humans work. I mean, they are the ultimate psychologists.
Yeah.
To make a magic trick work, you have to understand human perception.
Yeah. Where they're going to look first, what you're going to be able to do in that 3-second time frame while they're looking at something else. Yeah, 100%. Have you ever seen the movie Now You See Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie.
There were 2 of them, right?
Yes. Yeah, I love it.
But
If anybody... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, anybody visiting Canada, maybe when things are back to quote unquote normal and the shows happen again, there's a show here in Niagara Falls called the Greg Freewin Magic Show, and he incorporates animals, tigers, birds, ducks, and women. It's the most amazing show. I have probably seen it 15 times every time I go to Niagara Falls, which is only 2 hours from here. I go, and it's amazing. And every single time I watch it, and I just fall in love with it again and again and again. It's amazing. He makes tigers disappear, women levitate, and tigers beneath them. Like, absolutely phenomenal. Like, he puts swans in buckets, and they're gone. Like, it's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, magic's incredible. We actually got to see Siegfried and Roy, who were famous in Las Vegas, and they'd had the Tiger Show, and it was incredible. That was awesome. I'll say this. The most incredible thing in magic that I've seen is we went to see David Copperfield in Las Vegas, and somehow, I don't know, Yvette and I always wind up getting upgraded somehow. Like, I'm not a special person. It's not like, it's not like somebody says, oh, well, there's, Brandon White, unless I'm in some fishing venue or maybe they know me around town for biking here because I'm on Instagram with all that. But other than that, like, I'm not a famous person by any stretch of the imagination, but we somehow get upgraded to these VIP things, and I do not buy them. It's not like Yvette and I say, we're going to sit in the front row. If anything, I'm like, I sort of want to sit back a little bit, and that's really expensive. Somehow we get front row seats. I was in a magic trick with him.
Wow.
My point is that we were sitting, I'm sitting here, the stage is right here in front of me.
Wow.
For listeners. I can put my arm on the stage and rest my arm on stage. That's where we are at this table. And he was doing magic right in front of us, and we couldn't figure it out.
No.
He made a car appear in front of us.
Stop. That gives me shivers.
Yeah, he made a car, a full-size car, and we are right there. To be able to do that means that you truly understand so many things about humans and perception, and it's just really incredible. But these skills translate into business.
Totally.
Because you have to understand your customer, and especially with businesses going online now, there's so many things that get put into this bucket of marketing, or really human computer interaction, or customer journey design of your website, of your if you have an e-commerce place. How many people still to this day have a homepage with 50 products on it and 29,000 links?
Right.
That's just dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out where you want that customer to go.
Yeah.
And put them there. Otherwise, they just get distracted. I tell people I wouldn't even put my Instagram or any link to any other thing on my website. And somebody would say, well, why is that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because humans are predictable. So I go to Danielle Jenkins' website for Domestic Divas, and I go on there, and I'm like, oh, she has an Instagram. I'm going to go to Instagram. Guess what happens when I go to Instagram?
You get distracted.
I'm gone.
Yep.
I am gone. In fact, it's almost really hard to go back to the website.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll get sucked in. You saw what happened when we were looking at fashion lady Maya earlier in the show. As soon as we for those who are listening, we went to their website and looked at Instagram or looking at pictures. As soon as that thing popped up, a heart came up saying that someone liked my thing, and guess what happens? You click there, and now you're gone, and now you're in this thing. You really have to think about these. You really have to think about how humans behave and what they perceive, and figure out, I hate the word hacks, but figure out hacks how that happens.
Well, and like, you know me, and for the listeners that have followed along, they know that I love systems and processes and ways to make things better without it always having to be down to a said person or something like that. So for us, just like your point there, Brandon, when it comes to not getting people distracted or off of that thing. So if somebody comes into our website, first things first, it's like book a consultation, shop. Like that's your option. That's all I want you to do. Either buy our product or buy our service. That's it. So they go into our service, book a consultation. That automatically tells them they have to fill out everything. It comes to our email saying that through our system, somebody's put in a request. Well, if that's on a Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, typically speaking, like nobody's in the office until Monday morning at 8 a.m. until 5, right? So we don't want to lose that client, because guess what? There's going to be other cleaning ladies, for example. They might not even have businesses or companies, but they could be on Facebook. That person then submits that request on a Friday night at 8 o'clock while they're having some wine. And now really, they're going to wait until we come in on Monday morning at 8 a.m. Probably not. They're going to go on Facebook. They're going to see somebody that posts in some group, cleaning lady for hire, $20 an hour cash, great references, right? Like that, it happens all the time. So what we do is we actually, I think it's 4 or 6 hours, which is still a substantial amount of time. However, it's still enough where it gives people that time, because they know it's 8 o'clock on a Friday night. So we're probably not going to get back to you until Saturday morning anyways. So we then set it where it comes back, and it's an email that comes from our system that looks like somebody's just wrote it. It's not like a shitty automated email that says, you know, thank you so much for your request. We're currently reviewing it. One of our office staff will get back to you within a couple of hours. So that's the first thing. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. So then by then, maybe myself, if I'm feeling like working on Saturday and picking those up, I could do it. Somebody could do it. Or from that point on, another one goes out that says, maybe we need this information. And then the next email will go and say, when do you want to do your virtual consultation? Because we do our consultations virtually by Zoom or FaceTime, something like that. So then that's another question that they then have to go, okay, let me look at my schedule. So now maybe it's Saturday evening. And I know it sounds funny, but it's a hack to drag out the system so they're engaged. And that gives us enough time by Monday morning. We can then go, okay, cool. You're booked in for Tuesday at 9 a.m. You're quoted by Tuesday at 9:30. Now you're in our system by next week, or in our schedule by next week. So it is a process, and you have to do that, because if we didn't have those automated things, and it costs a lot, and it's definitely a lot to get set up through our systems, but it is so worth it. As that client is now engaged, they are excited for us to, you know, talk to them on Tuesday morning or whenever they book their consultation with us. It goes automatically in our schedule, and bing, bang, boom, and the client's there. But if not, if we didn't have that, that client's gone. That client's going to go on Facebook scrolling after she submitted that request, see somebody post that, and they're going to just go, oh, you know, if on Monday morning we responded with, oh, you know, hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for filling your request 3 days ago. She's going to go, oh, I've already hired somebody. Done.
Yeah, there you go. You have to really understand that people use the word customer journey. It's just human behavior. Mm-hmm. Just think about what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And reverse engineer what that is, and then build your, whatever you want to call it, systems, processes, pipeline, customer journey, whatever you're trying to do in your business with your customers or potential customers, and figure it out. And sometimes you just have to be creative. Mm-hmm. And there's no, I think earlier in the show, what I was trying to say as it relates to formal marketing education and whatnot is that's not the only answer.
Right.
Often people say, like, here's the traditional, do a SWOT analysis and then do this. I'm not saying that that's not important. It doesn't help. It does. But if the companies that we've talked about, including yourself and myself, had tried to do traditional marketing, we may never even got off the ground, because nothing says prime the pump, act like you're 5 people, set up your phone system so you sound familiar or sound bigger than you might be, set up your signatures in your email, which I do the exact same thing, Danielle, depending on what role I'm in. It's so easy. I probably have 50 signatures that I can choose from in my email. In fact, I use those signatures to even automate processes.
Yeah.
They're already pre-written because it's sort of like an FAQ. The problem is that people want emails and they want answers. And so you just pre-write them and you save yourself a ton of time. And I've done that for ages. How I ran that original website, at the end, we were running that on less than 5 people.
Right.
And we're able to do that because we had all these systems and procedures and pre-written things to be able to handle 85,000 members with one person. So I think you have to think outside the box. It's not, there's no rules.
No.
I mean, you don't want to, I'd use magic as the gauge. People accept magic and they don't think it's unethical unless you do something crazy in magic. But it's generally accepted that it works, it's fun, you're being deceived. So use that as the gauge. Is creating fake accounts to prime the pump because humans want to go to the restaurant with the line out the door and not the one with one person sitting in it? Is that deceptive? No, I don't think it's deceptive. As long as you have a product or service that's good and that's going to provide people some level of not satisfaction. It could be satisfaction, or it could just be answering their problems and helping them do things. Then you should do it. I'll give you another example.
Well, and it's about creating hype. At the end of the day, you want to create hype. And, we don't have to do that now. I don't have to make 10,000 accounts and hype up my Instagram account. But at the beginning, I had to hype it up by saying, we're this big, this fast, because you have to hype it up. So you're right about that, Brandon. You have to do it to a point where you're getting yourself known without deceiving or scamming people. I think that's probably a better word. You don't want to be known for a liar or a scammer, but
well, you do have to back up the hype. So I cringed a little bit when you used hype, because I think people believe that the hype is where it's at, and it's not. The PR, accelerated PR or social proof is important because humans want that. But if you hype, and the reason I think I cringe at that, Danielle, is all these people are online and they're hyping themselves up. Like, I've got an agency, I can do your marketing. Yeah. No offense, dude. I mean, you're 17 years old, and I met some young people who are very successful. We're having a young woman on the show some point in the next few weeks. She's 14 years old and she's written 7 books.
Wow.
So I'm just saying that, they're young. I'm not dismissing young people, but in any sense of the imagination, I'm just saying you only live so many years. You only have so much experience, and it's statistically not possible that all these people who say they're as good as they are as good as they are. Let me give you an example. I'm going to give you an example. I give everybody an example. We had someone pitch us this week to be on the show. They have a marketing agency they're trying to grow. They are very young. And I have seen some young people who can kick total ass at online marketing. However, they said, well, I have 7 million followers on Instagram. And at first you're like, holy mackerel, that's a lot. So we dug in, and so that was the hype.
Right.
And then when we dug in, it's got 12 pictures on his Instagram page. Clearly he bought those followers. People. If you dig into the followers, you look at the pictures, the content, the what should I say? I don't want to say it's fake. Manufactured press.
Mm.
And there's just no substance. So that's where hype goes wrong.
Right. True. There's a good hype and a bad
I mean,
hype.
if you hyped that you could clean my house and you charge me $150 and I come in and my mirror in my bathroom still has toothpaste shit on it, I'm gonna be like, that's just bullshit hype.
Right.
I mean, and then you've actually created something that's just worse for you exponentially.
Yeah.
So you've got to deliver on. You got to be prepared to deliver on. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
You know, you can launch. You need to launch earlier, and you need to put your stuff out there, even on new products and things. But for existing companies, but you gotta be able to deliver, because once you sizzle it,
that's it.
And if it doesn't taste pretty good, yeah, I mean it doesn't work out well.
Yeah.
So I think you do have to. Magicians deliver on the promise. The magician who has incredible hype about a magic trick and then gets you in there. It's like, have you ever been to the carnival and they want you to see like the bearded lady? And you're like, the bearded lady has a fake beard. I mean, that's an example of cheapening the, what, you never seen the bearded lady?
Never even heard of a bearded lady.
In like a carnival?
No.
You ever gone to a carnival?
I mean, we have like fairs, but they don't have
so you ever been to
they don't have a
you ever
bearded
been to the
lady.
fair? Oh, what do you like, the smallest man in the world or tallest person in the world? You haven't seen all that?
No.
And it's like, give me $7 and come in and da 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 da. Yeah. No. Anyway.
Anyway, the concept is, I understand what you're saying.
Clearly, I missed that. Let's follow up that one with the real world scenario that is a little bit more substantial than the bearded lady. So in 1970, I'm paraphrasing out of my memory here. 1970 World Cup, Pele was playing. He wore Puma shoes. In order to put Puma on the map as the lead shoe maker, of which arguably the greatest soccer player, although people will argue with Madonna and 6 other people, for me, whatever. Pele was great. Puma paid Pele $120,000 to purposely stop and tie his shoes on the field.
Right. So the camera goes in on him and they see the Puma shoes.
So traditional marketing would say, buy a commercial, Danielle, and advertise Puma. Get a spokesman named Pele and put him holding the shoe, or show some reels with him scoring goals and try to zoom in on the shoe. But what's worth more than live coverage, not during a commercial break, where every camera in the world is zooming in on Pele tying his shoes? And there's an example of, it's not quite the Reddit or the Airbnb or the PayPal, but it's another example of Puma hacking their way into being the premier shoemaker. And that effectively put them on the map. Not that they weren't on the map, but it put them over the edge of being associated with greatness.
Yeah, it's true. And it's untraditional. Again, you're not going to learn that at business school. They're not going to say, okay, get a product, hire some very well-known celebrity, get them to endorse it. It's not going to be traditional, but it's smart. It is smart. And Puma could do that. And yeah, I think you're right. People who, whether they're startups or existing businesses, I think having those untraditional, clever ways to get yourself up there. But you're right. Don't under-deliver. Make sure you can deliver on that promise. One thing I always say to our teams is, it doesn't matter what you do. It's what you don't do that people will remember. And it's so true. And it works for our company, and it works for so many other companies and businesses. If you're supposed to be the best landscaper or grass cutter in the world, and that's what you are promoting, and you go to your house and he cuts your grass, but he leaves all the weeds or the edges looking like crap. Your grass may be the best cut grass in the world, but you're going to come home and you're go, grass looks nice, but stupid guy forgot to cut the weeds or the edges or whatever. And that's going to leave a sour taste in your mouth. And you're not going to remember the great grass. You're going to remember the shitty edging. So it's very important to remember that for anybody listening.
I agree. I got one that could be on the fence.
Okay.
As an example.
Go ahead.
So let's talk about this. Uber in its early days, what people may not know is that Uber was originally a black car service, and the real Napster, did you see Italian Job?
I have seen Italian Job, yes.
Yeah, the real Napster. Anyway, the real car riding service was Lyft, and they started in Palo Alto, and they were doing car sharing, but they were very small. Uber was black cars, saw what Lyft was, how Lyft was doing south on the peninsula, because Uber was in San Francisco and Lyft was in Palo Alto, which is, 40-minute drive, depending on traffic, not that far down the peninsula. And they switched and they said, we're going to do car sharing. And in the earliest days, regardless of what they were competing, these two, Lyft and Uber, they were ultimately competing with taxis.
Mm-hmm.
And what the Uber employees did was, at one point, they ordered 5,000 taxis on rival apps and then canceled them all, which basically shuts down your financial back-end merchant bank.
Right.
When you're getting all these cancels, and then it drew the business to Uber. I don't know, man. That one feels more evil.
Yes.
It's definitely effective.
It's effective, but it's not ethically.
I don't know how ethical. Yeah, I don't know. Why does that feel? Why is all these other ones, like building fake accounts and talking to yourself and putting signatures in your thing that you're another person, feel like more magic okay to do, and that one feels more
because
evil?
People aren't getting hurt or like financially destroyed over it, right? Like that's a big one. That's shutting down a company. That's not good.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking. I mean, all's fair in love and war. Competition.
It depends on what your morale limit is, Brandon. If somebody started a cleaning company right next door to me and they were all over Instagram and they had fake accounts, am I going to get a little text like, it's all fake? Yeah, of course. But it is what it is. It's competition. Step up your game, Danielle. You got to do better. But if they were to hire 100 clients to book with us and then cancel last minute, I go over there with a flamethrower. Like, that is not okay, because then you have to think, I've just put maybe 20 of my employees at, a full week of work, and now last minute on Monday morning, all of that work has been canceled. So now I'm going to be at what, 15 grand payroll? It may not shut me down, but it's going to be a kick in the face.
I didn't say that you wouldn't be mad. I'm just saying, why does that feel? It does. It feels, and it's interesting how we believe that, but we can't find words in our brain to actually explain it.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything you just explained is you'd be super mad and you'd be out money. And now we're saying, but other payment processors were out money because PayPal was buying shit from themselves and creating artificial demand. And then everyone else, customers, were seeing PayPal instead of Visa and MasterCard.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. It's a toughie because, ultimately, if another company, and I'm going to refer back just to another cleaning company because that's just what I know. If another cleaning company came in and took business from me because they were just doing well, I would be irritated, but I'd support it. I'd be like, way to go, guys. You guys are killing it. But if they were to intentionally come and scam me or deceive me or plot against my company, then I think that's a different ball game, no?
Well, I don't know. It's competition. I mean, you might not, I'm not saying that the receiver of the move or maneuver or magic likes it. I'm just saying it feels like that Uber one is crossing the line, but I don't know that it is, because PayPal took money away from Visa and MasterCard, and that is absolutely true. Let me give you another one to think about, because this one feels less crossing the line than Uber. Well, I don't know. I go back to Pele. I don't know. That seems pretty freaking sneaky. I mean, you do like slip Pele $120,000 and you're like, tie your shoe on purpose? Is that?
Yeah, but that could just be considered an endorsement, brand.
During the game?
I mean, soccer fans who are relying on that game to win may be pissed off because they're like, that could have been 3 seconds where he could have scored another goal, not tied his damn shoe, and I could have won $5,000 if they were betting. You know, like, I don't know. I feel like maybe it just depends on circumstances of the people or whomever it could be affected.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but is it possible that he took away advertising from companies that were allocated the traditional spot to be able to do that?
But those traditional companies, Brandon, didn't have $120,000 to pay him.
Forget the money. He inserted an ad in an event in a spot that was not designed to have an ad.
I mean, they could all be arguably sneaky / unfair, but on the other hand, go after what's yours.
Yeah, let me give you this one. Apparently, Salesforce hired fake protesters to disrupt their biggest rivals' conferences. So they effectively hire all these protesters out front that were all fake. And then the founder of Salesforce, Mark, ordered all the taxis at the event and gave a 45-minute pitch about his product. So no one could leave. He kept the people at the convention that the protesters turned up to captive.
I mean, this is the thing. On one hand, I'm thinking sneaky, kind of like ruthless, shameless. But then on the other hand, I'm like, if it was easy, everybody would do it, and those who take risks get reward. I don't know. That's a toughie because, like you said, all is fair in love and war, right? Like they're willing to go that extra mile, so they deserve it. I don't know. That's tough. Have you? Hold on. I have to ask you. Have you ever done something that people could question, like other than getting your users on your media page? Have you ever done something questionable for business?
I've never done anything that would be questionable for business, but I'm extremely competitive and cruel but fair.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in a game, here's where I think it crosses the line. I'm going to use basketball because I've been watching the NBA and the Golden State Warriors. When they played Memphis guy, Gary Payton II, was going up for a layup on a fast break, and the guy came in behind him and absolutely hammered him. I mean, decked him from behind, and he fractured a bone in his elbow and has been out. Hopefully he's going to be back for the next game. someone could argue, and it was argued, that that was purposeful to take him out. And Gary Payton in that game was being instrumental as a defender against their best player and was having an effect. Did he, and it was called a flagrant 2. The guy actually got thrown out of the game for it.
Mm.
That feels more evil.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's against the sort of rules of humanity. By the same token, I could switch over to war. And armies kill the enemy's people. And they want to kill the leaders and the generals.
Mm-hmm.
And the admirals and all the senior people. Is it ethical? Is it right? In war, it seems to be par for the course. And even, there's rules of engagement in war, but people break those and torture people and do that all the time. And in the name of something greater. So let's switch back to the basketball thing real quick. This guy makes a flagrant foul purposely. Maybe he didn't want to take him out, but he wanted to definitely make a point. Taking out another player who is having an effect on your team so that you can win, is that, I'm not saying that I would do it. I'm just saying, is that just very competitive play?
No, I think there's a line crossed there. I mean, if you're going out to intentionally hurt someone, again, if you're going out to intentionally take their money, hurt someone, like this guy won't even be.
Well, then what happens? Let me interrupt you. What happens? PayPal purposely tried to take money out of Visa and MasterCard's wallet. No pun intended.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it because they're like, this is the thing. Humans especially, we think of things, and I think even in our conversation last week, we were talking about like corporations and things like that. And maybe people are a little bit, like, if you look at the game that you were just talking about, yes, the team lost, but ultimately that poor guy who just got decked, he won't be able to walk or, like, you know what I mean? Like, he's out. So if they did something and the team lost, okay, it is what it is. But then you have to look at a little bit deeper. I mean, that poor guy just got destroyed.
Well, his whole career could have been
exactly
affected.
Right. So then that's when like lawsuits and stuff come into play. So then you look at Visa and MasterCard against PayPal. I mean, I think the first instinct is they're a big company, right? Like, they have the money. We all know that that's not true, but I think that that's what people think. Like, if that was to come out, a big headliner that PayPal just dominated and Visa MasterCard stock went down 100%. Like, I don't think people really give a shit because it's Visa and MasterCard. Other than stock people.
So now we're at, because companies are big and can afford it, it's okay to do it.
No, I'm just saying, like, that could be a consensus that people could think.
I understand.
Like, yeah.
Well, we sort of got off topic on discussing if it's right or not when, I don't know, it worked. And then you say, well, that's sort of brutal, Brandon. Just saying it worked and now we're going to live with it.
But this comes back to our conversation all the time, Brandon, of that people have different opinions and, I guess, what's the right word? Limits on morale and what they believe is right and things like that. And again, I think like a lot of our conversations that we have on here end in other people's opinions and thoughts and how they perceive things. Because some people who are, they don't deal with big corporations or something may just care for the small guy, but maybe they go, fuck Visa, I don't know. I think I don't really know what the right answer is on that one, but there are limits. I do think that there are limits depending on who you talk to.
Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking those things were really innovative. And when you're a small, even when you're a big companies do these things too. And this all started out of the conversation with Gucci and them actually manufacturing quote unquote knockoffs so they could sell more of them and make a bunch of money. Is that unethical? I mean, coming back to it, I don't know whether it's ethical or unethical, and it's easy to judge, and especially it's easy to get mad if you're on the receiving end of having a bunch of protesters outside your convention from somebody who hijacks it to turn it in. I'd say that's sort of innovative. Is it fair? I don't know that, fair is relative and arguable and all of those things. But here's what I will say coming out of this conversation today. Understand that implementing those things in your organization will inherently create the culture of your organization.
Yep.
So witty and innovative and unconventional can be really good. If you hijack someone else's convention, you start to fall into, or Uber, you start canceling. Let's use that one. It seems more egregious for whatever reason. If you do that, and it feels that way, which it does for some reason, which we haven't been able to put words to, then you can't do as I say, not as I do. So how will your people inside your company act and justify it with the very thing that your company did? And how will you say, well, we did that to somebody else, but you can't do that to somebody within the company?
Right.
That becomes the problem. So I think you just have to, if you perform magic, everybody loves magic. You and I have not been able to put into words why this one thing feels more egregious than another. But you, as a person who owns a business, runs a business, manages a business, senior manager, whatever you are, you need to think about the culture and if it fits with the culture.
Yeah.
And there's a line which you and I just haven't done a great job at explaining it. I don't know that I'd love to hear someone who could explain it. Maybe you're listening out there and you can explain it better because you were able to listen to us and step outside this. But just understand that what you do will become part of your culture and how that will affect you. Some of those things, I got no problem living in a culture that does those sorts of things. And I did it.
Right.
And it worked. And had I not done it, I'm not sure that I would be talking to you from a studio that I built with money from a company that I sold, that I did that from.
Right. I mean, it's healthy competition. Yes? No? But,
it's healthy competition. I mean, it's all competition. Whether it's healthy or not depends on what end of the receiving end you are.
I wanted to share just a quick thing before we ended here because it really resonated. Sergo, my other half, he is a mortgage broker. And listening to our conversation and just what you were saying, this is a perfect example. So he's a mortgage broker. He is very, very well known for being ethical, very fair. His fees are lower than some of the others that are out there. He can always help. He's up 24/7 helping people. Great reputation for customer service, getting the job done, things like that. So he has a great client base, lots of people. There are also people out there, exact same industry, who are, they're not scammers, they're doing their job, but their reputation is known for being shifty or for being scam artists. So this is the thing, just for easy numbers, Sergo does 10 deals that have come to him that are like, you know what, Sergo, you have such a great reputation. You can help me and my granddaughter, and we're going to lose our house because we have so much debt. And, can you help us refinance and blah, blah, blah. So he'll say charge, I don't know, $1,000 to help that person. But they're going to be repeat customers all the time. Then there's people out there in the city, for example, and Sergo, his competition, he just does a good job on sharing the reviews he gets, being very honest and transparent about how the process works. There's other mortgage brokers out there who they are not transparent. They go, okay, you need to refinance. Okay, cool. So we're going to actually put you in a private mortgage where you're going to pay 12% and you're never going to get out of it. No exit strategy. And those people are now screwed financially. That guy's also going to charge $10,000 to do so. That's the thing. That guy's also successful because he has lots of money coming in, but his reputation is not great. Or, you know, he'll maybe get half of the amount of clients that Sergo's getting, but he ends up really taking home more money because he's charging more. But the thing is, people will only deal with a person like that once. Unfortunately, they will end up getting shafted. They will end up getting themselves, you know, either losing their home or in so much debt they can't get out of. They have to sell their home to get out of it, things like that. So same industry, same quote unquote competition, but like you said, how you do things is ultimately what your culture is going to be. So that guy, you know, people he works with are probably snakes. He probably is in the back pocket of some private lenders and he's getting a crawlback fee from those lenders for putting them in these mortgages and things like that. So it really does determine what your culture / reputation is going to be, whether you're self-employed or for a company.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And I'd love to hear if anybody's listening and has stories about how they've had innovative, healthy competition ways without hurting other people / businesses. I would be very interested in hearing.
Yeah, so right in. I think this turned out to be a good show. It was totally not what we were going to talk about today. And but it was a fun conversation with learning about things, the story behind the story of how companies really do get started. Mm-hmm. And it's not always, it doesn't mean that you can't use traditional means to either start or launch a new product. This is not about just starting a company and launching things. It's also about launching new products and services in your already existing business. You're going to have to be innovative in today's world. Mm-hmm. So,
and actually, Brandon, thinking about this is actually going to lead perfectly into our topic for next week, because the topic we were going to do today, entrepreneurs born or made. And I think this kind of ties in, no? Because we have to be innovative. We have to think of these things, and maybe that can be an argument towards our conversation on entrepreneurs born or made.
Yeah, let's do that next week. I had a conversation with a venture capitalist and on the show recently, and he was able to articulate the difference between an entrepreneur and not, even if the two people are in business. So it'll be interesting to unpack that one next week.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Today was a great conversation.
It was. Have a good week.
You as well. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.